So, you're telling me that my life isn't worth as much as her wedding? I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, staring out at the Seattle skyline as rain pelted my office window. The doctor's diagnosis papers still lay open on my desk. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. Aggressive. Treatment needed immediately. Now, Olivia, don't twist my words. My mother sighed through the phone. Of course we care about your health, but Jessica's wedding is in 6 weeks. The venue deposit alone was $45,000, and you know she's dreamed of getting married at Westlake Gardens since she was a little girl. This is her one special day. I closed my eyes, feeling the world tilt beneath me. And the $80,000 you and Dad promised to help with my specialized treatment? The one my oncologist says could double my chances of survival? Well, sweetie, you've always been the practical one. You can do the standard treatment covered by insurance. Plenty of people beat cancer that way. Your sister only gets one wedding day. As those words hung in the air, I watched a ferry cut through the misty waters of Puget Sound below, continuing its journey despite the storm. In that moment, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about money. This was the culmination of a lifetime of being second best. And now, when my life literally hung in the balance, nothing had changed. I have to go, Mom. My oncologist is waiting. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Olivia Chen, and at 32, I thought I had finally established my own path. I had fought hard to get here, graduating with honors from Stanford despite my parents attending only Jessica's college performances, securing a major grant, to start my evergreen healing initiative despite my family dismissing it as playing with plants, and buying my Seattle condo overlooking the water with no financial help, despite Jessica receiving down payment assistance for her Portland home. The Evergreen Healing Initiative had become my life's work, creating therapeutic garden spaces at hospitals and healthcare facilities, developing nature-based recovery programs for patients, and researching the measurable impact of environmental connection on healing outcomes. We'd started small, but now had programs in 4 hospitals across Washington state. That morning had begun like any other Tuesday. I woke at 5:30, made green tea, reviewed quarterly reports, and prepared for a board meeting. Then my phone rang, displaying Dr. Reynolds' number. 2 weeks earlier, I'd gone in for what I thought was a routine checkup after experiencing some abdominal pain and fatigue. Given my age and overall health, I'd expected nothing serious. The pathology results are back, Olivia. Dr. Reynolds' voice had been gentle but direct. I'm sorry, but it's ovarian cancer, stage 3C. We need to discuss treatment options immediately. The world seemed to stop. Cancer. At 32. With my family history, I'd always been vigilant about screenings, but ovarian cancer was stealthy, often detected late. I'd scheduled an appointment with an oncologist for that afternoon, then made the call to my parents. My father had answered, sounding distracted as usual. Ollie, can I call you back? We're meeting with Jessica's wedding planner. Dad, I need to talk to you and Mom now. It's important. Something in my voice must have registered because I heard him call my mother to the phone. I explained the diagnosis as clinically as I could, outlining the standard treatment covered by insurance and the specialized immunotherapy protocol that Dr. Reynolds strongly recommended, the one that would cost an additional $80,000 out of pocket. Oh, honey, my mother had gasped. That's terrible news, but you're strong, you'll beat this. Dr. Reynolds says the specialized treatment would increase my 5-year survival rate from 38% to over 70%, I explained. I was hoping to use the medical fund you and Dad set up for emergencies. There was a telling pause before my father spoke. About that fund, Ollie. We've had to reallocate those resources. Reallocate? What does that mean? That's when my mother had taken over the call, explaining that Jessica's dream wedding venue had suddenly become available due to a cancellation, but required an immediate deposit, plus the designer dress, premium catering, and all the other elements needed for her perfect day. Now, ending the call in my office, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window, watching raindrops race down the pane. This felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. My assistant Rebecca knocked softly before entering. "The board members are all here, Olivia. Should I tell them you need to reschedule?" I straightened my shoulders and gathered my files. "No, the meeting goes forward. The Harborview Hospital Garden project can't wait." Rebecca's eyes widened. "But the doctor—" "I see Dr. Wilson at 3:00, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The foundation's work continues." The boardroom fell silent as I entered. These people, environmental scientists, healthcare administrators, philanthropists, had become more than colleagues over the past 4 years. They'd become my chosen family. "Before we discuss the quarterly projections," I said, taking my seat, "I need to share some personal news that will impact the foundation." I told them about the diagnosis, the treatment plan, the prognosis, everything except my parents' decision about the money. Some things were still too raw to voice aloud. Marcus Emerson, our head of research, was the first to speak. "Olivia, we'll support you however we need to. If you need to step back—" "I don't," I said firmly. "This foundation is part of my healing process. The work we do matters. I've seen how our gardens and programs help patients face their darkest hours with more resilience. Now I'll experience it from the other side." Diane Rodriguez, our director of development, made a note in her planner. "We should discuss contingency plans for program management during your treatment days. And—" She hesitated, meeting my eyes. "What about the financial aspect? These treatments can be expensive even with good insurance." I swallowed hard. "I'm exploring options." The meeting continued, but afterward, Diane lingered. We'd been friends since college, roommates who bonded over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of making meaningful change in the world. "What aren't you telling me?" she asked when the others had left. The dam broke. I told her everything. The callous phone call, years of being overshadowed, the stolen medical fund. Diane's expression darkened. "They can't do this, Liv. That money was set aside for medical emergencies. This qualifies." "Apparently, Jessica's wedding emergencies take precedence," I said, the bitterness I'd been suppressing finally seeping into my voice. "The money's gone. The deposits are paid." "What did Jessica say about this?" I snorted. "She sent me a text saying she's sending healing vibes and that I should try to make it to the wedding because the photos would be epic. She suggested I wear a wig if I lose my hair by then." Diane cursed under her breath. "What's your plan?" "First, meet with Dr. Wilson to discuss treatment options. Then figure out how to fund the specialized protocol without bankrupting myself. The foundation needs its operational budget intact." Diane was quiet for a moment, then opened her laptop. "The Hollister Foundation has a special funding track for innovators facing health crises. They want to ensure important work continues, despite personal health challenges. The deadline is Friday." I stared at her. "You think I qualify? You've created healing gardens at 4 major hospitals, developed research-backed nature therapy protocols that have improved recovery times by 23%, and you're expanding accessible urban gardens in healthcare deserts. Yes, you qualify." For the first time since the diagnosis, I felt a flicker of hope. Dr. Wilson's office at Seattle Cancer Care Alliance was warm and inviting, with large windows overlooking a carefully tended garden. Ironically, one that my foundation had installed 2 years earlier. The standard treatment protocol involves aggressive surgery followed by traditional chemotherapy, Dr. Wilson explained, her kind eyes holding mine. "It's a solid approach with reasonable outcomes." "And the immunotherapy option?" I asked. Combined with targeted therapy, it's showing remarkable results for your specific cancer profile. The clinical trials have been very promising, nearly doubling survival rates at the 5-year mark. But as I'm sure Dr. Reynolds mentioned, insurance classifies it as experimental for your stage and won't cover the additional $82,000. I nodded, my throat tight. I understand. Is that a financial possibility for you? I'm working on it, I said. Dr. Wilson studied me. Olivia, I know your foundation's work. That garden outside my window has helped countless patients find moments of peace during their darkest days. Whatever treatment path you choose, I believe in integrating your own healing philosophy into your care plan. I smiled, despite everything. I'm designing my own healing journey? Precisely. Now, given the aggressive nature of your cancer, we should schedule surgery within the next 2 weeks, followed immediately by whatever additional treatment we decide on. That evening, I sat in my condo, surrounded by medical pamphlets, insurance, documents, and the half-completed Hollister Foundation grant application. My phone pinged with a message from Jessica. OMG sis, you have to see my wedding dress. Cost more than a car, but so worth it. Don't worry about bringing a gift. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Your health situation is gift enough, LOL. But seriously, try to look not sick for the photos. Love you. I didn't even open the photo. Instead, I found myself scrolling through images of patients in our hospital garden programs, children with cancer finding joy in planting sunflowers, stroke survivors regaining dexterity while pruning herbs, elderly patients with dementia showing remarkable memory recall while surrounded by familiar plants. This was what mattered. This was worth fighting for. My phone rang. Diane. I've been thinking, she said without preamble. Remember Jamie Crawford, the tech investor who joined our donor circle last year after his mother recovered at Harborview? Of course. He credited our garden program with helping her regain cognitive function after her stroke. He just pledged $100,000 to expand the program at Swedish Medical Center. What if we approach him about redirecting part of that as a personal loan for your treatment, with a repayment plan? He's a businessman. He might appreciate helping both you and the foundation's future. My instinct was to refuse. I'd built my career, my foundation, my entire life without asking for special favors. But this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the work that would continue if I survived. Set up the meeting, I said. 3 days later, I sat across from Jamie Crawford in his downtown office. I explained my situation candidly. The EE diagnosis, the treatment options, the financial challenge, and my determination to continue the foundation's work. So your parents took your medical fund for your sister's wedding? He asked, disbelief evident in his voice. They made their choice, I said simply. Jamie was quiet for a moment, looking at the foundation's impact report I'd brought along. My mother still visits that garden at Harborview, you know. Says it heals her in ways medicine couldn't reach. He closed the folder and looked at me directly. I won't do alone. My heart sank. Instead, I'm creating a healthcare innovation, grant specifically for program directors facing health crises. You'll be the first recipient, $100,000, no repayment required. The only condition is that you document how your personal experience shapes the foundation's future work. I blinked back tears. Jamie, I don't know what to say. Say you'll fight like hell and keep building those gardens. The world needs them. And Olivia? Don't invite your family to the ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Some people don't deserve to share in the beauty others create. The week before my surgery, I received an elaborate envelope in the mail, Jessica's wedding invitation, featuring her and her fiancé Troy posed in matching white outfits against the backdrop of Westlake Gardens. The invitation requested, The honor of your presence at the celebration of a lifetime, followed by a note in my sister's handwriting. Liv, I know you're going through a tough time, but please try to make it. It won't be the same without you there to see my perfect day. Mom says your first chemo should be done by then, so hopefully you'll feel okay. Maybe bring a cute headscarf if your hair starts falling out. Love you lots. P.S. We're registered at Nordstrom, Williams-Sonoma, and have a honeymoon fund. I placed the invitation on my coffee table and opened my laptop. The Hollister Foundation grant application was due tomorrow, and Diane had helped me craft a compelling narrative about ensuring organizational continuity through personal health challenges. The Jamie Crawford Healthcare Innovation Grant paperwork was already processed, and my specialized treatment was scheduled to begin a week after surgery. My phone rang. My mother. Olivia, did you get Jessica's invitation? She's concerned she hasn't received your RSVP. I just got it today. I'll be in the middle of treatment then, Mom. But surely you can take one day off. It's your sister's wedding. I closed my eyes, counting to 3 silently. No, Mom, I can't just take a day off from cancer treatment. That's not how it works. Well, Jessica is very upset. She was counting on her big sister being there. Oh, and I was counting on the medical fund you promised me, I said, surprising myself with my directness. We don't always get what we want. That's not fair, Olivia. We raised you girls to support each other. No, you raised Jessica to expect support and me to provide it. There's a difference. The silence on the other end was telling. I have to go, Mom. I'm finalizing a grant application to help pay for the treatment that might save my life. The day of Jessica's wedding coincided with my second immunotherapy treatment. As I sat in the infusion center, watching the medication that might save my life drip slowly into my veins, Diane sat beside me, working on her laptop. Jessica just posted her first wedding photo on Instagram, she said, turning the screen toward me. The caption says, "The most perfect day ever with the people who matter most." The photo showed Jessica in her designer gown, surrounded by my beaming parents, extended family, and friends, all raising champagne glasses beneath Westlake Gardens' famous floral arch, the one my parents had once promised to help me walk through someday at my own wedding. They look happy, I said, surprising myself with how little I felt. Are you okay? Diane asked, closing her laptop. I considered the question seriously, looking around the infusion center with its sterile walls and medical equipment. Through the window, I could see the small garden my foundation had installed last year. A young patient in a wheelchair was touching the leaves of a Japanese maple, a small smile on his thin face. You know what? I am okay. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. 6 months into my treatment, the preliminary results were promising. The aggressive surgery had removed the visible tumors, and the combined chemotherapy and immunotherapy was targeting the microscopic cancer cells. The side effects were brutal: fatigue that made even climbing stairs a challenge, nausea that turned even the thought of food repulsive, hair loss that had me wearing colorful scarves Diane had bought me. But I persevered. Throughout it all, I continued directing the foundation, working remotely on treatment days and coming into the office when I felt strong enough. We broke ground on 2 new hospital gardens, launched a research study on horticultural therapy for cancer patients, and secured major funding from the Hollister Foundation. I received occasional texts from Jessica about her honeymoon, her new house, her adapting to married life. My parents called weekly with awkward conversations that carefully avoided any mention of my medical fund or their absence during my treatment. I answered politely but briefly, my emotional energy reserved for healing my body and growing my foundation. 3 months after completing my final treatment, I stood in the newly completed healing garden at Seattle Children's Hospital, watching as patients and their families explored the space for the first time. A local news crew was filming a segment on innovative approaches to pediatric care. Ms. Chen, called the reporter, a woman named Tara Reed, who had covered our foundation's work before. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind these healing gardens? Our foundation believes that connection with nature is a vital but often overlooked component of healing, I explained, gesturing to the carefully designed space around us. Each element here serves a purpose. The raised beds allow wheelchair users to garden. The sensory plants provide stimulation for neurological patients. The winding paths encourage gentle exercise, and the quiet nooks offer space for reflection. And you continued this work even while battling cancer yourself? Tara asked, her eyes gentle. I hadn't publicized my illness, focusing instead on the foundation's mission. But now, standing in the garden with my strength returning and my latest scans showing no evidence of disease, I decided transparency might help others. Yes, I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer last year. My treatment journey gave me firsthand insight into what our patients experience, and it deepened my conviction that healing environments matter profoundly during medical challenges. That's remarkable dedication. Was your family a source of support during this time? The question caught me off guard. I paused, considering my answer carefully. I found support in many places. My incredible healthcare team, my colleagues, and the healing power of the work itself. Tara nodded, seeming to understand what I wasn't saying. Well, Seattle is fortunate to have both you and these healing spaces. Thank you for your time. That evening, my phone exploded with messages. The news segment had aired, and apparently, my parents and Jessica had seen it. First came Jessica's text. OMG, Liv, you were on the news? Why didn't you tell us you were like famous now? And you talked about your cancer but didn't mention how supportive your family was? Not cool, sis. Then my father. Olivia, your mother is very upset about the news story. You made it sound like you faced cancer alone. After everything we've done for you. Finally, my mother. Darling, we just saw you on Channel 4. You look so thin. Why didn't you tell us you were being interviewed? We would have come to support you. Call me back immediately. I set the phone aside without responding and returned to reviewing the final plans for our largest project yet. A comprehensive healing garden and environmental education center at the University of Washington Medical Center. The capital campaign had exceeded our funding goal, and groundbreaking was scheduled for next month. My phone rang again. Diane. Have you seen the foundation's social media? She asked, her voice excited. That news segment is going viral. The Seattle Times wants to do a feature on you and the foundation. And guess who just called? The Catherine Williams Foundation. They want to discuss a major health innovation award. The Catherine Williams Foundation was one of the most prestigious healthcare philanthropy organizations in the country. Their annual innovation award came with a $5 million grant and national recognition. Are you serious? I asked, stunned. Completely. Apparently, someone on their selection committee has a child who benefited from our garden at Seattle Children's. They've been following our work for months. The award ceremony is in Chicago next month. 2 weeks later, I received the official notification that the Evergreen Healing Initiative had won the Catherine Williams Health Innovation Award for revolutionary approaches to integrating environmental healing with traditional medical care. The award ceremony would be a black tie gala attended by healthcare leaders from across the country. That same day, I received another message from my mother. Olivia, it's been 3 weeks since you've returned our calls. This silent treatment is childish. Your father and I are coming to Seattle next weekend to see you. We need to clear the air before Jessica's baby shower next month. She's expecting you to host it. I finally called her back. Mom, I can't meet next weekend. I'll be in Chicago for an award ceremony. What award ceremony? Is this more garden? Business? Olivia, family obligations should come first. Jessica is having a baby, your niece or nephew. I'm receiving a major healthcare innovation award that includes funding to expand our programs nationwide. And yes, it comes with certain obligations. Well, my mother sniffed. I suppose that's important too. Your father and I could come to Chicago instead. We'd love to see you receive an award. The ease with which she pivoted from dismissal to interest was so familiar, it almost made me laugh. The ceremony is invitation only. I'll send you the live stream link. The night of the gala arrived. I stood in my hotel room in Chicago, looking at my reflection in the full-length mirror. The elegant blue gown draped perfectly over my still thin frame, and the short pixie cut that had grown in after chemo suited me better than my pre-cancer hair ever had. The woman in the mirror looked different, not just physically, but something in her eyes had changed too. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. There's a surprise waiting in the lobby. Curious, I took the elevator down, stepping out to buy. Find not just Diane waiting, but Dr. Wilson, Marcus, Rebecca, Jamie Crawford, and several patients who had benefited from our hospital gardens, all dressed for the gala, all beaming at my confusion. What is this? I asked, emotion tightening. My throat. Your real family, Diane said simply, handing me a small blue flower for my hair. We wouldn't miss this for the world. The Catherine Williams Foundation Gala was held in the Grand Ballroom of the Chicago Symphony Center. As we entered, I noticed the spectacular living wall of plants creating a backdrop for the stage, a thoughtful touch honoring our foundation's work. Throughout dinner, I discussed expansion plans with healthcare leaders interested in bringing our programs to their facilities. As dessert was being served, I excused myself to visit the restroom, and as I returned, I froze in shock. Standing in the lobby, looking uncomfortably out of place, were my parents and Jessica. "Surprise!" Jessica called, waving frantically. "We came to support you." My mother hurried forward to embrace me. "Darling, you look wonderful. We couldn't miss your big night. When we saw it was the Catherine Williams Foundation, well, your father pulled some strings with a golf buddy who knows someone on their board." I stepped back, processing their unexpected appearance. "How did you get in? The event is invitation only." "Oh, we just explained we were the parents of the award recipient," my father said, adjusting his bow tie. "They were very accommodating once they realized who we were." "Who you were?" I repeated softly. Jessica patted her slightly rounded belly. "The baby and I just had to be here to see Auntie Olivia's moment. Plus, Chicago has amazing shopping for nursery items. We're making a weekend of it." Before I could respond, one of the foundation representatives approached. "Ms. Chen, we're ready for you backstage." I nodded, turning back to my unexpected family. "There are no more seats at the dinner, but you can watch from the back during the ceremony. I have to go prepare now." As I walked away, I heard my mother say to the foundation representative, "We're so proud of our Olivia. We've supported her work from the very beginning." Backstage, I took deep breaths, centering myself. This award wasn't about my family or their sudden interest in my work. It was about the thousands of patients who had found healing in our gardens, the research that validated our approach, and the vision of expanding these healing spaces to hospitals nationwide. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the announcement, "please welcome to the stage the recipient of this year's Catherine Williams Health Innovation Award, Olivia Chen, founder and director of the Evergreen Healing Initiative." Applause filled the ballroom as I walked onto the stage. Under the lights, I could see the faces of my chosen family: Diane, Dr. Wilson, the patients whose lives had been touched by our work. In the back stood my biological family, my mother already wiping away tears as if this moment belonged to her. "Thank you," I began, looking out at the audience. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. The prognosis was daunting, the treatment options limited by financial constraints. In that moment, I experienced firsthand what our patients face, not just the physical challenges of illness, but the emotional landscape of vulnerability and uncertainty. I paused, collecting my thoughts. Throughout my career, I've believed that healing happens not just through medicine, but through connection to nature, to purpose, to community. During my darkest days of treatment, I witnessed the power of the healing gardens we had created. I sat in them between chemo sessions. I watched children find joy planting seeds even as their bodies fought devastating illnesses. From the corner of my eye, I could see my mother nudging my father, both beaming with apparent pride in their daughter's accomplishment. This award will allow us to expand our healing gardens and nature therapy programs to 20 additional hospitals across the country, bringing evidence-based environmental healing to communities with limited access to green spaces. But beyond the physical gardens, we're creating spaces of possibility, where patients can reimagine their futures, reconnect with hope, and find strength in the resilience of nature itself. The rest of my speech focused on our plans, our research, and our gratitude to the Catherine Williams Foundation. As I concluded to enthusiastic applause, I realized I felt nothing but calm certainty about the path forward, both for the foundation and for myself. At the reception afterward, my parents and Jessica pushed through the crowd toward me, where I stood speaking with the director of the Catherine Williams Foundation. "Olivia," my mother called, reaching for a hug. "That speech was wonderful. We are just bursting with pride." The foundation director smiled. "You must be Mrs. Chen. Your daughter's work is truly revolutionary." "Oh yes," my mother gushed. "We've always encouraged Olivia's interest in gardens. Her father built her first greenhouse when she was just a girl." I stared at her, momentarily speechless at the revision of history. My father had indeed built a greenhouse for Jessica's short-lived interest in orchids. My garden projects had been relegated to a small corner of the yard, deemed messy and taking up too much space. "Actually," came Diane's voice as she joined us, champagne flutes in hand, "Olivia built her first therapeutic garden at Stanford University Medical Center, using her own scholarship money when she couldn't secure initial funding. That garden is still helping patients heal 10 years later." My mother's smile faltered. "Well, yes, of course. We always knew Olivia would do important things." "Important enough to support her cancer treatment?" Diane asked, her voice sweet but her eyes hard. The foundation director looked between us, sensing tension. "If you'll excuse me, I should greet the other guests. Ms. Chen, we'll be in touch about the grant disbursement details." As she walked away, my father cleared his throat. "Olivia, your mother and I would like to discuss something with you. In light of your success and this substantial award, we thought you might want to establish a family foundation. Something that would include all of us. You handling the garden aspects, Jessica managing public relations with her influencer connections, and your mother and I directing overall strategy." I looked at them, really looked at them, seeing clearly for perhaps the first time. They hadn't come to support me. They had come to claim ownership of my success. "No," I said simply. "No?" my father repeated, as if the word was foreign. The Evergreen Healing Initiative isn't a family foundation. It's built on research, evidence-based protocols, and dedicated professionals who believe in the work. "But we're your family," Jessica interjected, one hand on her belly. "Don't you want your niece or nephew to be part of your legacy?" I thought about Dr. Wilson, who had fought for my specialized treatment plan, about Jamie Crawford, who had created a grant to help fund it, about the patients who shared their healing journeys in our gardens, about Diane, who had sat with me through every treatment. I thought about the real meaning of family. "My legacy isn't determined by DNA," I said quietly. "It's built through actions, choices, and shared values. The foundation has a clear mission and established leadership. That isn't changing." My mother's expression hardened. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done?" I interrupted, keeping my voice low but firm. "When I needed you most, When I was facing cancer and needed the medical fund you promised, you chose Jessica's wedding instead. You decided her one-day celebration mattered more than my chance at survival. That's ancient history, my father blustered. You clearly did fine without it. I survived despite your choices, not because of them, I corrected him. And I built this foundation the same way, with the support of people who believed in its value even when you didn't. I glanced around the room at my real support system. Colleagues, medical professionals, patients, and friends who had stood by me through both personal and professional challenges. I need to get back to my guests now. Thank you for coming. As I walked away, Jessica called after me. So you're not hosting my baby shower? I turned back one last time. I'll send a gift. 2 years after the Katherine Williams Award, I stood in the center of our newest and largest project yet, the Evergreen Healing Center at the University of Washington Medical Center. What had begun as a therapeutic garden had evolved into a comprehensive healing complex with research facilities, patient treatment areas, and training programs for healthcare professionals interested in environmental medicine. The grand opening celebration was packed with supporters, patients, medical professionals, and media. As I prepared to cut the ribbon, I looked out at the crowd and felt a profound sense of gratitude. My cancer remained in remission. The foundation had expanded to 32 locations across the country, and our research was changing how the medical establishment viewed environmental interventions. I hadn't spoken to my parents or Jessica in over a year. After the gala in Chicago, they had made several more attempts to insert themselves into the foundation's work, culminating in my father attempting to join our board of directors through a connection with one of our donors. When that failed, my mother had sent a scathing email accusing me of turning my back on family and letting success change me. I had finally replied with a simple truth. Success didn't change me. Cancer did. It showed me who stood by me when it mattered and who didn't. I'm grateful for that clarity. As I raised the ceremonial scissors to cut the ribbon on the new healing center, I caught sight of a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd, Dr. Wilson, the oncologist who had guided me through treatment. She gave me a thumbs up and a wide smile. I had beaten the odds, both medical and personal. The 70% survival rate my specialized treatment had offered had become my reality. The foundation that had once been a small passion project now stood as a nationally recognized leader in integrative healthcare. Cutting the ribbon, I stepped forward into the healing garden that would serve thousands of patients in the years to come. Some wounds, I had learned, could become sources of unexpected growth. And sometimes, the family you choose creates the legacy that matters most. The night after my confrontation with my parents at the hospital, I couldn't sleep. My small apartment felt both suffocating and oddly empty at the same time. The moonlight filtered through my curtains, casting strange shadows across the living room where I sat curled up on my sofa, scrolling through emails I'd been neglecting. Most were from colleagues at the foundation, updates on the harbor view, garden project, questions about grant applications, the normal day-to-day business that had seemed so important before cancer rewrote my priorities. One email caught my attention. It was from Eleanor Wright, an elderly woman whose husband had spent his final months in our garden at Swedish Medical Center. We'd exchanged several messages during his illness, and I'd attended his memorial service, but I hadn't heard from her in months. "Dear Olivia," she'd written, "I hope this message finds you well. I've been thinking about you and the incredible gift you gave Harold during his final journey. Those hours in the garden were his happiest during treatment. The doctors gave him medicine, but you gave him peace. I recently received his life insurance settlement and would like to discuss establishing a memorial fund in his name to expand your work. Please call me at your convenience." The email was dated 3 weeks ago. I'd been so consumed with my diagnosis, the betrayal, the scramble for funding, that I'd missed this potential lifeline. With trembling fingers, I checked the time. 11:42 p.m., far too late to call an elderly widow. But I could respond. Let her know I'd call tomorrow. As I typed my response, explaining briefly about my own diagnosis and apologizing for the delayed reply, I felt something shift inside me. Harold Wright had been a retired botanist who'd spent hours identifying every plant in our garden, meticulously documenting them in a small notebook despite his weakening condition. Eleanor had told me it gave him purpose during a time when everything else was being taken from him. I understood that feeling now in a way I hadn't before. Cancer was attempting to steal my future. My parents had taken my treatment fund, but no one could take my purpose unless I surrendered it. The Evergreen Healing initiative wasn't just my work. It was my defiance against every force trying to diminish me. My phone rang at 7:15 a.m., startling me from the first deep sleep I'd had since the diagnosis. Eleanor Wright's name flashed on the screen. "Olivia, I just read your email," she said without preamble, her voice carrying the crisp efficiency of someone who'd spent decades as a university administrator before retirement. "Cancer at your age. It's unconscionable. How are you managing the treatment costs?" Her directness was refreshing after weeks of delicate conversations where everyone seemed afraid to acknowledge the financial reality of my situation. "I'm piecing together options," I admitted. "Insurance covers the standard protocol, but the specialized treatment my oncologist recommends is classified as experimental. I'm applying for grants, looking into clinical trials." "And your family? They're helping, I presume?" The question hit like a physical blow. "They have other priorities at the moment." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "I see. Well, let me be direct, Olivia. Harold's insurance policy was substantial. We had no children, and most of our respective families are gone. We'd already decided before his diagnosis that our estate would go to causes that mattered to us. The garden you created gave Harold dignity during a time when his body was failing him. That's a gift beyond measure." My throat tightened. "The garden was just doing what it was designed to do. Your husband found his own dignity there." "Nevertheless," Eleanor continued, "I'd like to establish the Harold Wright Memorial Fund with an initial endowment of $250,000, specifically for the expansion of therapeutic gardens at cancer treatment centers, with a stipulation that the foundation, director's medical care is considered an essential operating expense." I nearly dropped the phone. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say. Say you'll fight this cancer with everything available to medical science. Say you'll continue building spaces where people like Harold can find themselves again when illness tries to erase them. That's all the thanks I need." After ending the call, I sat stunned, staring out my window at the Seattle skyline emerging from the morning fog. With Jamie Crawford's healthcare innovation grant and now Eleanor's endowment, I had more than enough to fund the specialized treatment protocol. In trying to take care of my own medical crisis, I'd inadvertently secured the foundation's future as well. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Board-approved remote work arrangement during your treatment. Also, the Hollister Foundation wants a meeting next week. Call me." For the first time since the diagnosis, I felt the weight on my chest lighten slightly. The path forward was still daunting, but no longer impossible. Dr. Wilson's office was bathed in the soft morning light when I arrived for my pre-surgery consultation. The garden outside her window was in full bloom, roses climbing a trellis, lavender attracting bees, small birds darting among the shrubs. "I have some news," I said after the medical preliminaries were complete. "I've secured funding for the specialized treatment protocol." Dr. Wilson's professional composure softened into a genuine smile. "That's excellent news, Olivia. I knew you were resourceful, but I'm impressed." "It came from unexpected sources," I admitted. "People whose lives were touched by the Foundation's work." She nodded thoughtfully. "There's a powerful symmetry there. The healing environments you've created for others are now contributing to your own healing journey." I hadn't thought of it that way. "It's often how the universe works," she said, closing my file. Now, surgery is scheduled for Monday. We'll remove as much of the cancer as possible, then begin the combined treatment protocol 2 weeks after, assuming your recovery proceeds as expected. As I left her office, my phone buzzed with yet another text from Jessica. OMG sis, just picked out the bridesmaids' dresses. They're blush pink, which might actually work with your skin if it gets all pasty from chemo. Keeping my fingers crossed you'll be feeling well enough. XOXO. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding and headed to the foundation's office. I had more important matters to focus on. The foundation headquarters occupied a modest space in a renovated warehouse in Seattle's Georgetown neighborhood. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a demonstration garden we'd created as a training facility for healthcare staff interested in implementing therapeutic horticulture programs. As I walked in, the entire staff, all 12 of them, stood and applauded. A banner hung across the main workspace read, "Healing Thoughts for Our Fearless Leader." Diane stepped forward, presenting me with a small potted plant, a resilient succulent that could withstand neglect during my treatment period. "We wanted you to know we're all behind you," she said, professionally and personally. I looked around at these people who had believed in my vision, who had worked tirelessly to bring therapeutic gardens to hospitals across Washington state, who now stood united in support of my health battle. "Thank you," I said, my voice wavering slightly. "This means more than I can express." Marcus, our research director, cleared his throat. "We've developed a workflow plan for your treatment period. Projects are distributed, communication protocols established, and we've created a rotating schedule to ensure someone from the team can drive you to and from major treatment appointments. You don't have to—" "We want to," Rebecca interrupted, firmly. "It's not up for debate." Looking at their determined faces, I felt a surge of emotion that threatened to overwhelm me. This was what family should be. People who showed up, who saw your need and met it without being asked, who valued your well-being above their convenience. The contrast with my biological family couldn't have been starker. "There's one more thing," Diane said, handing me a thick folder. "While you were meeting with Dr. Wilson, I had a call with the Hollister Foundation. They've fast-tracked our application and approved a 2-year grant for the clinical research component of our work. They specifically cited your innovative approach to integrating nature-based therapy with traditional medical treatment as the deciding factor." I opened the folder, scanning the award letter, $350,000 over 2 years to document and analyze the impact of our garden therapy protocols on cancer patient outcomes. "This means we can hire that research coordinator we've been wanting," Marcus said excitedly, "and fund the longitudinal study tracking patient well-being. It's almost like the universe is conspiring to make sure both you and the foundation thrive," Rebecca said with a grin. Looking around at their faces, I felt a certainty settle within me. No matter what cancer took from me physically, my hair, my energy, temporarily my health, it couldn't take this. The work would continue. The gardens would grow. The healing would happen, with or without my family's understanding or support. The morning of my surgery dawned clear and unusually warm for Seattle. Diane picked me up at 5:30 a.m., a thermos of ginger tea waiting in the cup holder. "Nervous?" she asked as we drove through the quiet streets toward the hospital. "Strangely, no," I replied, watching the city come to life around us. "I feel ready. Like everything that's happened has been preparing me for this moment." "Very zen of you," she teased. "Don't worry. I'm sure the existential panic will hit right before the anesthesia." We both laughed, the sound filling the car with a normalcy I desperately needed. At the hospital, the pre-surgical preparations passed in a blur of forms, vital signs, and gentle questions from the nursing staff. Dr. Wilson stopped by, her surgical cap already in place, to review the procedure one final time. "We'll be as aggressive as safely possible," she explained. "The goal is to remove all visible cancer. giving the subsequent treatments the best chance of success. I nodded, the reality of what was about to happen finally sinking in. And if you can't get it all? Then we adjust the treatment plan accordingly. But let's focus on today's battle, not the entire war at once. As the orderlies prepared to wheel me to the operating room, Diane squeezed my hand. "I'll be right here when you wake up." "Promise?" Wild horses couldn't drag me away. The last thing I remember before the anesthesia took hold was thinking, how different this moment would have been if I were still waiting for my parents to show up, still expecting my sister to send more than thoughtless texts. Instead, I drifted into unconsciousness, surrounded by care that was chosen, not obligated. I woke to the muted beeping of monitors and the soft murmur of voices. My body felt weighted, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Through heavy eyelids, I made out Diane sitting beside my bed, laptop open, typing quietly. "Hey," I managed, my voice a rough whisper. She looked up immediately, setting the laptop aside. "Welcome back. How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," I croaked. "Water?" She held a cup with a straw to my lips, allowing me small sips. "Dr. Wilson said the surgery went well. They removed all visible cancer. You've been out about 6 hours." I tried to nod but abandoned the effort when my head protested. "Any messages from my family?" The question escaped before I could censor it, a reflexive reaching toward people who had already proven they wouldn't be there. Diane's expression answered before her words did. "Nothing yet. I'm sorry, Liv." "Don't be. It's actually easier this way. No disappointment if you don't expect anything." She squeezed my hand gently. "For what it's worth, the foundation inbox is overflowing with well wishes. The entire healthcare community seems to be rallying around you." Before I could respond, a nurse entered to check my vitals and pain levels, adjusting medication and helping me find a more comfortable position. As she worked, I noticed a small tattoo on her wrist, a simple outline of a tree. "Your foundation created the garden at Harborview, right?" she asked, noting something on my chart. "Yes," I confirmed, surprised. "The pediatric one with the sensory path?" Her face softened. "My nephew spent 3 months in that pediatric ward last year. Leukemia. That garden was the only place he smiled during treatment." She tapped her tattoo. "Got this after he went into remission. A reminder that growth is possible even in the harshest conditions." After she left, I turned to Diane, finding her already watching me with a knowing expression. "See?" she said, simply. "Even flat on your back in a hospital bed, your work matters. It reaches people. It changes lives." I needed that reminder today, I admitted. "I know. Now rest. The hard part of recovery is still ahead." She was right. The weeks following, surgery were some of the most physically challenging of my life. Pain, exhaustion, and the slow, frustrating process of regaining basic functions occupied my days. Through it all, the foundation team maintained a constant presence, driving me to follow-up appointments, bringing healthy meals, keeping me updated on work developments, and most importantly, treating me as Olivia rather than patient with cancer. 2 weeks after surgery, I began the specialized treatment protocol, an aggressive combination of targeted chemotherapy and the immunotherapy that promised to significantly improve my survival odds. The side effects were brutal. Hair loss came first, followed by nausea that made even the smell of food intolerable, bone-deep fatigue that turned walking across my apartment into a marathon, and a constellation of smaller miseries that accumulated into a daily struggle. Through it all, I forced myself to spend at least 30 minutes each day in the small container garden I'd created on my balcony. Even on the worst days, when movement seemed impossible, I would sit among my carefully tended plants, drawing strength from their quiet resilience. They didn't grow any faster because I wished they would. They simply followed their nature, responding to the conditions around them, adapting when necessary, thriving when possible. I tried to follow their example. Jessica's wedding arrived during my third round of treatment. The photos flooded social media. My sister resplendent in her designer gown. My parents beaming proudly. The lavish venue decorated with thousands of dollars worth of flowers that would be discarded by day's end. The same day, I spent 6 hours in the infusion center, watching medication drip into my veins, fighting to save my life cell by cell. Diane kept me company, working quietly on her laptop while I dozed. When she thought I was sleeping, I heard her murmur to another patient's caregiver. Her own family chose a wedding over her cancer treatment. Can you imagine? But she's building something incredible anyway. Those gardens at Seattle Children's and Harborview? That's all her. The woman had whispered back, "My son loves that garden at Children's. It's the only place he feels normal during treatment." I kept my eyes closed, letting their words wash over me. The pain of my family's betrayal was still raw, but increasingly, it was being balanced by evidence that my work mattered in ways they would never understand. That night, I received a text from my mother. The wedding was magical. Jessica was the most beautiful bride ever. Everyone asked about you. We said you were too dedicated to your work to attend. Call when you can. The dismissive rewriting of reality stung, but less sharply than it once would have. My mother hadn't asked how my treatment was progressing, hadn't acknowledged that I was fighting for my life rather than simply dedicated to work. The gap between us wasn't just physical distance, it was fundamentally different values, different realities. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and continued working on the expansion plans for the Seattle Children's Hospital garden. The foundation had received enough funding to double its size, adding features specifically designed for teenage patients who were often overlooked in pediatric settings. 4 months into treatment, during a follow-up scan, Dr. Wilson delivered the first cautiously optimistic news. The cancer was responding to treatment, showing significant reduction. The specialized protocol was working exactly as hoped. "We still have a long road ahead," she cautioned. "But this is exactly what we wanted to see at this stage." I sat in her office, clutching the scan results, overwhelmed with emotion. So the treatment I almost couldn't afford, the one my parents decided wasn't as important as a wedding, is actually saving my life. Dr. Wilson's expression was compassionate, but professional. "Based on these results, yes. The specialized protocol is proving highly effective for your specific cancer profile. Without it." She trailed off, the implication clear. That evening, I sat in my apartment, considering whether to share this news with my family. Part of me wanted them to know, to understand the magnitude of what their decision could have cost. Another part recognized that such a conversation would change nothing. They would rationalize, minimize, perhaps even take credit for my recovery somehow. In the end, I sent a simple text to our family group chat. "Good news from oncologist today. Treatment is working well. Prognosis improving." My father responded first. "That's my girl. Always a fighter." Jessica followed. "Yay, so happy for you. Does this mean you'll be able to host my baby shower next month? Feeling much better about asking now that you're on the mend." My mother's response came last. "Wonderful news, darling. We never doubted you'd beat this. Must be the strong Chen genes." No acknowledgement of the treatment they'd refused to help fund. No recognition of what might have happened without the intervention of Eleanor Wright and Jamie Crawford. No real understanding of what I was enduring. I set the phone aside and turned instead to my work email, where a message from the director of the National Association for Therapeutic Horticulture awaited. They were requesting permission to feature our hospital garden protocols in their upcoming Best Practices Guide and asking if I would deliver the keynote address at their annual conference, assuming my health permitted. The contrast was striking. While my family continued to center themselves even in response to news about my health, my professional community offered meaningful recognition and accommodation. One relationship continued to drain me when I had the least energy to spare. The other energized me when I needed it most. 6 months into treatment, I was able to return to the office part-time. My body was weakened, my formerly thick hair now a soft fuzz covering my scalp, but the core of who I was remained intact, perhaps even strengthened by what I'd endured. The foundation had not merely survived during my partial absence, it had thrived. Diane had stepped up as interim director, implementing many of the expansion plans we'd discussed before my diagnosis. Marcus had secured additional research funding through a partnership with the University of Washington Medical School. Rebecca had developed a training program for hospital staff that was now being rolled out at facilities across the region. My first day back, they presented me with a scale model of the Seattle Children's Expansion Project, complete with tiny figures of patients and medical staff enjoying the space. The architectural plans had been approved, funding secured, and groundbreaking scheduled for the following month. "We wanted to make sure you had something exciting to come back to," Diane explained. "Something beyond cancer and treatment." Looking around at these people who had carried my vision forward even as I fought my private battle, I felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you all." "Just keep getting better," Marcus said simply. "The gardens. Need you? We need you." That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor at the office. Eleanor Wright, elegant in a simple blue dress, her silver hair neatly styled. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, standing in the doorway. "I was downtown for an appointment and wanted to see how you're doing." I welcomed her in, offering tea from the selection we kept for visitors. "The treatment is working," I told her, pouring the steaming liquid into mugs. "Dr. Wilson is cautiously optimistic." "I can see it in your face," Eleanor said. "There's a clarity that comes from facing mortality and finding your way forward anyway." Harold had it in those final months. We sipped our tea, discussing the Foundation's progress and the impact of her generous donation. As she prepared to leave, she paused, fixing me with a penetrating gaze. "I hope you don't mind my asking, but has your family come around? Are they supporting you now?" The question caught me off guard with its directness. "They're happy I'm responding to treatment. But no, not in any meaningful way." Eleanor nodded as if confirming something she'd suspected. Harold's family was much the same, present for celebrations, absent for struggles. It grieved him for many years. "How did he make peace with it?" I asked, suddenly desperate for guidance from someone who might understand. "He realized that family isn't just who shares your DNA. It's who shares your values, who shows up when it matters most." She gestured around the office, to the photos of hospital gardens and smiling patients. "This is your family, Olivia. These people, this work, these values. Harold found his true family late in life. You're fortunate to have found yours while you still have decades ahead." After she left, I sat quietly, letting her words settle into me. The grief of my family's betrayal wouldn't disappear overnight, but perhaps it could transform into something else. A clarity about what truly mattered, who truly mattered, and how I wanted to spend whatever time I had, whether it was years or decades. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Hey sis, are you really going to make me ask a third time about my baby shower? Mom says you're back at work, so clearly you're well enough to host. It's kind of selfish to keep ignoring me." For the first time, I didn't feel the familiar twist of hurt and obligation. Instead, I felt something closer to pity, combined with a firm resolve. I typed a response. "Jessica, I'm still in active cancer treatment. I'm not able to host your shower. I wish you and the baby well." Then I blocked her number. It was a small act of self-protection, but it felt momentous. The first boundary I'd drawn clearly with my family. Not from anger or revenge, but from a place of clarity about what I could give and what I needed to preserve. The next morning, my parents called repeatedly. I let the calls go to voicemail, listening later to my mother's increasingly agitated messages demanding I apologize to Jessica for ruining her special time, and my father's stern lectures about family responsibility. I saved the messages but didn't respond, focusing instead on finalizing details for the Seattle Children's Garden expansion. That evening, as I watered my balcony plants, I realized I felt lighter than I had in months, perhaps years. The treatment was working. The foundation was thriving, and I was finally freeing myself from expectations that had never served me. Cancer had taken much from me, but it had also given me an unexpected gift: the courage to choose my own definition of family, my own priorities, my own path forward. Not everyone would understand or approve of those choices, but for the first time in my life, I was certain they were right for me. 8 months into treatment, Dr. Wilson delivered news I hardly dared to hope for. No evidence of disease. ADUI. Cancer wasn't gone. Ovarian cancer at my stage required vigilant monitoring for years, but it was in remission, retreating before the aggressive treatment protocol. "This is the outcome we fought for," she said, her professional demeanor softening into a genuine smile. "The specialized treatment protocol worked exactly as we hoped." "The treatment my parents decided wasn't worth funding," I said quietly. Dr. Wilson's expression was compassionate but direct. "Yes, without it, we would be having a very different conversation today." The weight of that reality settled over me. The treatment my parents had deemed less important than Jessica's wedding had literally saved my life. The money Eleanor Wright had given in memory of her husband had preserved my future. The support of colleagues who owed me nothing had sustained me through the darkest days. These were truths I would carry forward, not as burdens of resentment, but as clarity about what and who truly mattered. As I left Dr. Wilson's office, I felt an urge to visit the garden at Seattle Children's Hospital, the first therapeutic garden my foundation had created. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the space was filled with young patients and their families, some in wheelchairs, others trailing IV poles, all finding moments of normalcy amidst their medical challenges. I sat on a bench near the small pond, watching as a young boy carefully fed koi fish, his mother supporting his frail body. His face lit with delight each time a fish rose to take the food from his fingers. "It's his first smile in weeks. A C," voice said beside me. I turned to find a nurse I recognized from previous visits to the hospital, her ID badge identifying her as Sophia Martinez. "The treatment is brutal," she continued, watching the boy. "But here in the garden, they get to be kids first, patients second." "That was always the goal," I said softly. She studied me more closely. "You're Olivia Chen, aren't you? From the Evergreen Healing Initiative? I didn't recognize you at first." I self-consciously touched my still sparse hair. Cancer had changed my appearance in ways that sometimes made me a stranger even to myself. "You've been through it too," she observed, professional eyes noting the signs of treatment. "Cancer?" I nodded. "Stage 3 ovarian. Just got the no evidence of disease report today, actually." "Congratulations," she said with the genuine warmth of someone who understood exactly what that meant. "We need you to keep creating these spaces. They matter more than most people can understand." As she walked away to attend to her patient, I remained on the bench, watching the life of the garden unfold around me. Children exploring, parents finding moments of respite, medical staff connecting with patients in a more natural environment. This was my legacy, regardless of what my biological family recognized. These moments of healing, these spaces of possibility, these connections forged during the most challenging times, they would outlast any wedding, outshine any social media post, outweigh any family drama. Cancer had tried to take my future. My family had withheld their support. But here, in this garden, Watching healing happen in real time, I found a peace that transcended both those betrayals. I was still healing, still rebuilding my strength, still finding my way forward. But for the first time, I was doing so with absolute clarity about who and what deserved my limited energy. The garden needed me. The foundation needed me. The patients needed me. And I needed them. Their purpose, their community, their shared vision of healing. That was family enough. The day the Seattle Times ran their feature on the Evergreen Healing Initiative was the same day I completed my final immunotherapy treatment. The timing felt symbolic somehow, an ending and a beginning coinciding. I'd brought a copy of the newspaper with me to the cancer center, the glossy weekend magazine section featuring a 4-page spread on our work. The cover photo showed me standing in the Seattle Children's Hospital garden, surrounded by young patients and their families, my short post-chemo hair catching the sunlight. Healing through nature. How Olivia Chen's Gardens are transforming cancer care, read the headline. The article detailed our foundation's work creating therapeutic gardens at healthcare facilities, the research documenting improved outcomes for patients who accessed these spaces, and our expansion plans for the coming year. There was a sidebar about my own cancer journey, tastefully done without sensationalizing, focusing instead on how the experience had deepened my understanding of the healing environments we created. Dr. Wilson smiled when she saw me with the newspaper. Local celebrity status already? Should I be asking for your autograph? Hardly, I laughed, settling into the infusion chair for the last time. But the publicity is good for the foundation. Donations are up 30% since the article. Went online yesterday. She checked my vitals, her movements efficient but gentle after months of caring for me. How are you feeling about finishing treatment today? I considered the question seriously. Grateful, apprehensive, a little lost if I'm being honest. Treatment has been my whole life for nearly a year, without it structuring my days. The now what phase, she nodded. It's common, especially for patients like you who approach treatment almost like a full-time job. The transition back to normal life can be disorienting. Is it really back to normal, though? I asked. Nothing feels normal anymore. Dr. Wilson pulled up a chair, something she rarely did during busy clinic days. It's not going back to your old normal. It's creating a new normal that incorporates everything you've experienced and learned. Some call it post-traumatic growth, finding meaning and purpose after trauma that actually expands who you are rather than diminishing you. As the immunotherapy medication began flowing into my veins for the final time, I thought about her words. The old normal had included accommodating my family's dismissal of my work, making myself smaller to avoid rocking the boat, accepting the role of practical, independent Olivia who never needed support like Jessica did. That normal had never served me well, even before cancer. Perhaps the new normal could be different. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Just saw you in the newspaper. Why didn't you tell us you were being interviewed? Dad and I would have loved to contribute. Quotes about how we've always supported your garden work. Also, Jessica's having another ultrasound today. It's a girl. She's thinking of naming her Olivia after her brave sister. Isn't that sweet? Call me. I set the phone aside without responding. Another attempt to rewrite history, to claim support they had never given, to insert themselves into my narrative now that it was receiving positive attention. And Jessica, naming her daughter after me might have seemed meaningful if it weren't so clearly an attempt to obligate me to her, to create a connection I couldn't refuse. Family? Dr. Wilson asked, noting my expression. Yes, still trying. To claim credit for success they actively undermined. She nodded, making a note in my chart. The people who abandon us during struggle but show up for the victory party are offering us valuable information about themselves. The question is what we do with that information. What would you do? I asked, genuinely curious about this doctor who had guided me through the darkest year of my life. She considered for a moment. I'd thank them for the clarity, and then invest my energy where it's valued. Life after cancer is too precious to waste on people who only want the easy parts of you. Her pager beeped, summoning her to another patient. She squeezed my hand before leaving. We'll talk more at your follow-up appointment. For today, just celebrate this milestone. You've earned it. After she left, I opened the newspaper again, reading the article more carefully. The journalist had done her research, tracing the foundation's growth from a small passion project to a recognized leader in therapeutic landscape design for healthcare settings. She'd interviewed patients who credited our gardens with helping them endure grueling treatments, healthcare providers who had witnessed improved outcomes, and researchers who were documenting the physiological benefits of nature connection during illness. The piece concluded with a quote from me. Cancer showed me that healing isn't just about what happens in the body, but what happens in the spirit. These gardens create space for the spirit to remember wholeness even when the body is broken. That remembering is essential to true healing. I didn't recall saying those exact words, but they resonated deeply. The gardens had been that for me. Spaces where I could feel whole despite everything cancer had taken. Places where my spirit could breathe when my body was struggling. As the immunotherapy finished its final drip, a text arrived from Diane. Staff surprised me with flowers. My phone's been ringing nonstop since the article. The Macintosh Foundation wants to meet next week about major funding. How's the last treatment going? Need a ride home? I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for this friend who had become more like family over the past year. Almost done. Then free at last. Yes to the ride if you're not too busy with our newfound fame. An hour later, Diane and I were celebrating over tea at a small cafe near the cancer center. It had become our ritual after treatments, a moment of normalcy before I returned home to rest and recover from the medication's side effects. So, what happens next? She asked, stirring honey into her chai. Both for you and for the foundation? Medically, I've got scans every 3 months for the first 2 years, working my way back to full-time hours as my energy returns. And then, I hesitated, uncertain how to articulate the shift I felt forming inside me. And then, Diane prompted gently, I think I need to decide who and what belongs in my post-cancer life. Not just professionally, but personally. This experience has shown me who shows up and who doesn't, who adds to my life and who depletes it. Diane nodded, understanding immediately. Your family. Among others, I've been thinking a lot about Dr. Wilson's concept of creating a new normal rather than trying to go back to the old one. The old normal wasn't working for me even before cancer. What would the new normal look like with your family? I considered the question, stirring my tea thoughtfully. Limited contact, clear boundaries. No more pretending their behavior is acceptable. No more making myself smaller to accommodate their narratives. That sounds healthy, Diane said, but difficult to implement. Harder than beating cancer? I asked with a wry smile. Different kind of hard. Cancer gave you a clear enemy to fight. Family is messier. She was right, of course. Cancer cells could be targeted with medication, radiation, surgery. The patterns established over decades of family dynamics were far more insidious, woven into the fabric of identity and belonging in ways that resisted simple extraction. One boundary at a time, I said finally. Starting with Jessica's baby shower next month. I'm not hosting it, attending it, or apologizing for either decision. Diane raised her teacup in a mock toast. To boundaries, may they be as strong as you are. The following week, I attended my first full day back at the foundation office since beginning treatment. The staff had decorated my workspace with plants and welcome back signs, and someone had ordered lunch from my favorite local restaurant. The warmth of their welcome contrasted sharply with the chill I felt every time I thought about my family. Marcus updated me on the research partnerships he'd established during my absence. Collaborations with the University of Washington Medical, School Seattle Children's Research Institute, and a prestigious national mental health organization interested in studying the impact of therapeutic gardens on patients with PTSD. The Times article created the perfect opening, he explained excitedly. People who've been considering this work for years suddenly saw the media validation and wanted to be part of it. Rebecca walked me through the operational expansions: 4 new staff members, a larger office space we'd move into next month, and garden projects now implemented or underway at 12 healthcare facilities across Washington and Oregon. We've had to create a waiting list, she admitted. Every hospital that reads about our work wants their own garden now. Diane saved her update for last, waiting until the others had returned to their desks. The Macintosh Foundation meeting is confirmed for Thursday. They're interested in creating a multi-year partnership to expand our work nationally. $5 million over 3 years, Liv? I nearly choked on my tea. $5 million? With an option to renew based on outcome metrics. They specifically cited your leadership as a key factor in their interest. Said your ability to continue this work during your own cancer treatment demonstrated an exceptional commitment to the mission. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had deemed my life's work, and by extension, my actual life, less important than Jessica's wedding. Now, a major national foundation was prepared to invest millions in that same work, citing my personal journey as evidence of its value. "When were you going to tell me about this?" came a sharp voice from the doorway. I looked up to find my mother standing there, designer handbag over one arm, expression oscillating between hurt and indignation. Behind her, my father wore his familiar look of stern disapproval, the one that had kept me in line throughout childhood. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Diane stood, professional but cool. "I'll give you some privacy. The conference room is available if you'd prefer." After she left, closing the door behind her, my mother stalked into the office, picking up the newspaper article that still lay on my desk. $5 million? She repeated, her voice strained. A national foundation? A feature in the Seattle Times? When were you planning to share any of this with your family? I took a deep breath, centering myself in the reality I'd been building during treatment. I wasn't aware I needed to report my professional accomplishments for family approval. "Don't be difficult, Olivia," my father interjected. "Your mother and I drove all the way from Portland because you've been ignoring our calls. Jessica is beside herself that you've refused to host her baby shower." "I'm recovering from cancer treatment," I said evenly. "Hosting a party isn't medically advisable right now." "You seem well enough to run this." My mother gestured vaguely around the office. "Garden project, and apparently well enough to give newspaper interviews and meet with national foundations." The dismissal of my work, my life's purpose, the foundation that was changing healthcare outcomes for thousands of patients, as a garden project, crystallized something for me. They would never see the value in what I did, because they had never seen the value in who I was. "Did you read the article?" I asked quietly. "Of course," my mother replied. "It was lovely, though it would have been nice if you'd mentioned your family's support." "What support would that be, Mom, when you and Dad took the money meant for my cancer treatment and gave it to Jessica for her wedding, when neither of you visited me during surgery or treatment? When Jessica's only communication was telling me to wear a headscarf to her wedding if my hair fell out from chemo?" My father's face darkened. "That's unfair, Olivia. We raised you to be independent. You've always been the strong one, the one who could handle things on your own. Jessica needs more support." "I had cancer," I said, my voice steady despite the emotion tightening my chest. "Stage 3 ovarian cancer with a 38% survival rate without the specialized treatment you decided wasn't as important as Jessica's wedding venue." "And you survived," my mother countered. "Just like we knew you would. Everything worked out." Fine. I stared at her, momentarily speechless at the circular logic. I had survived because Eleanor Wright and Jamie Crawford had funded the treatment my parents refused to help with. I had survived despite their abandonment, not because of their confidence in me. "Why are you really here?" I asked finally. "It's not because I've been ignoring your calls. You could have continued leaving voicemails for that." My parents exchanged a look, one I recognized from childhood, the silent communication that preceded some new expectation being placed on me. "We've been thinking," my father began, his tone shifting to what I thought of as his business voice. "This foundation of yours has clearly become quite successful. With this new funding, you'll need experienced business guidance. I've recently retired from the firm, and your mother has stepped back from her volunteer work. We'd like to join your board of directors, help shape the foundation's future." The audacity was breathtaking. After dismissing my work for years, after abandoning me during life-threatening illness, they now wanted to insert themselves into the organization's leadership, to claim partial ownership of its success. "The board positions are filled," I said, my voice calm despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "And even if they weren't, board members are selected based on specific expertise and demonstrated commitment to our mission." "We're your parents," my mother said, as if that trumped all other qualifications. "Who could be more committed to your success than we are?" "Success?" I repeated. "Or control? Because those aren't the same thing." My father's expression hardened. "I think you're forgetting who helped you get started. Who paid for that fancy education at Stanford? Who covered your rent when you were first setting up this foundation?" "I had a full scholarship to Stanford," I reminded him. "And I worked 2 jobs to cover my rent when the foundation couldn't pay me." "You've never contributed financially to the Evergreen Healing Initiative." "Well, we'd like to now," my mother interjected, apparently sensing the conversation slipping away from their agenda. "We could make a significant donation, have a garden named after the Chen family. Wouldn't that be lovely?" I studied them both, my ambitious father who had always seen me as an extension of himself rather than my own person, my status-conscious mother who had consistently prioritized appearances over authentic connection. They hadn't changed. They simply wanted to associate themselves with success now that others had validated it. "No," I said simply. "No?" my father repeated as if the word were foreign. "No, I don't want your donation. No, you can't join the board. No, there won't be a Chen family garden." My mother's face crumpled in what looked like genuine hurt. "But we're your family, Olivia. After everything we've done for you?" "That's just it, Mom. When I needed you most, when I was fighting for my life, you chose Jessica's wedding instead. The people who saved my life, who funded my treatment, who supported the foundation's work when it was still just a garden project. They're my family now." My father stood abruptly. "You're being ridiculous. This is exactly why we've always had to push you to be practical. You get so emotional about these plants of yours that you lose perspective on what really matters." I rose as well, suddenly, aware that I'd grown taller than him in ways that had nothing to do with physical height. "What matters is integrity, being there for the people you claim to love when they need you most, not just when it's convenient or beneficial." "I think we should go," my mother said quietly, gathering her purse. "You're clearly not yourself after all this treatment. We'll talk when you're feeling more reasonable." As they turned to leave, I called after them. "Mom, Dad, I do love you both. But I don't trust you anymore. And I won't pretend that what happened last year was okay just to keep the peace." They paused at the door, my father's back rigid with anger, my mother's shoulders slumped in what might have been defeat or manipulation. It was hard to tell with her. "Jessica's baby shower is on the 15th, she said, not turning around. "She's still hoping you'll reconsider." After they left, I sank back into my chair, emotions churning. Setting boundaries had been simultaneously terrifying and liberating. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying for decades, the impossible task of earning approval from people determined to withhold it. Diane knocked gently before entering, 2 steaming mugs of tea in hand. I heard raised voices. "You okay?" I accepted the tea gratefully. I think I just officially disappointed my parents for the last time. How does that feel? I considered the question, searching for the right words. Like removing a splinter that's been festering for years. Painful, but necessary for healing. She smiled, understanding without needing further explanation. The Macintosh Foundation moved their meeting up. They can see us tomorrow afternoon if that works for you. I nodded, turning back to my computer. Let's prepare the presentation tonight. I want to show them exactly how their funding can transform cancer care nationwide. That evening, working late at the office with Diane to finalize the Macintosh Foundation presentation, I received a text from Jessica. "Mom said you were horrible. To her today, after everything they've done for you? I can't believe you're making my pregnancy so stressful. The baby feels it when I'm upset, you know. Is that what you want?" I stared at the phone, recognizing the familiar pattern, Jessica creating drama, positioning herself as the victim, leveraging emotional manipulation to force compliance. It had worked for her entire life, our parents consistently prioritizing her feelings over all else. For the first time, I saw it with complete clarity. Not just as my sister's personal tactic, but as a dysfunctional system our family had maintained for decades. Jessica wasn't solely responsible for her behavior. Our parents had cultivated and rewarded it, just as they had cultivated my role as the practical, independent one who never needed support. I set the phone aside without responding and returned to the presentation. The contrast between my biological family's dynamics and the supportive community I'd built around the foundation couldn't have been starker. One relationship consistently drained my energy, the other consistently renewed it. The choice seemed suddenly, blindingly obvious. The Macintosh Foundation meeting the next day exceeded all expectations. The representatives were deeply impressed by our research data, our implementation model, and our plans for national expansion. When the Foundation's director, Victoria McIntosh herself, asked about the sustainability of our leadership given my recent health challenges, I was honest. "Cancer changed me," I acknowledged. "It clarified my priorities, deepened my understanding of our mission, and connected me to a community of supporters I might never have found otherwise. I'm not the same person who started this foundation, but that's actually an asset. I understand our work now from both sides, as a provider and as a patient." She nodded thoughtfully. "The best leaders are often those who've walked through fire and emerged with both scars and wisdom. We'd like to fund not just your garden installations, but a leadership development program to train others in your approach. Build a nationwide network of therapeutic landscape specialists who can bring this work to every major medical center in the country." By the time we left the meeting, the foundation had verbally committed to $5. $8 million over 3 years, $800,000 more than their original offer, specifically earmarked for the leadership training program. They didn't just fund our work, Diane marveled as we walked back to the office. They funded your vision. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in shades of gold and pink. My phone showed 5 missed calls, 2 from my mother, 2 from my father, 1 from Jessica. I hadn't listened to their voicemails or read Jessica's texts. Instead, I'd returned calls from Dr. Wilson confirming my follow-up appointment, Eleanor Wright accepting my invitation to the Seattle Children's Garden expansion groundbreaking, and Jamie Crawford discussing a potential collaboration between his tech company and our foundation on virtual garden experiences for patients too ill to go outside. As the last light faded from the sky, I made a decision. I wouldn't cut my biological family off completely. That felt like another kind of unhealthy extreme. But I would maintain the boundaries I'd established. Limited contact. No pretending their behavior was acceptable. No making myself smaller to accommodate their narratives. Most importantly, I would continue investing my limited energy in the relationships and work that truly sustained me. The foundation team, the healthcare partners, the patients whose lives were transformed by our gardens, and the growing community of supporters who believed in our mission. Cancer had tried to take my life. My family had declined to help save it. But in the space between those betrayals, I had found something unexpected, a clarity about my own worth that no one could take away again. The morning of the Evergreen Healing Initiative's 5th anniversary gala arrived with unusual clarity. For Seattle in October, crisp autumn air, vibrant blue skies, and the kind of golden sunlight that transformed the city into something almost magical. I stood at my apartment window, coffee in hand, watching the ferries cross Puget Sound, feeling a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible to imagine. 5 years. 5 years since my cancer diagnosis. 5 years since my parents had diverted my treatment fund to Jessica's wedding. 5 years of building something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. My phone chimed with a message from Diane. Car service confirmed for 4 p.m. Caterer reports all systems go. Donors arriving from across the country. You ready for your big night, boss? I smiled, typing back. As ready as I'll ever be. See you at the venue. Tonight's gala at the Olympic Sculpture Park represented more than just an anniversary celebration. It was the public launch of our National Healing Landscapes Initiative, a comprehensive program to establish therapeutic gardens at cancer treatment centers in all 50 states. With over $20 million in secured funding, research partnerships with top medical institutions, and a growing staff of dedicated professionals, we had evolved from a small local nonprofit into a nationally recognized leader in integrated cancer care. And I had evolved too. The 5-year survival milestone for my type of cancer had passed 6 months earlier. Dr. Wilson had marked the occasion by formally shifting me from cancer patient to cancer survivor status, though she reminded me that vigilance would always be necessary. The aggressive treatment protocol, the one my parents had deemed less important than Jessica's wedding venue, had done its work. My quarterly scans now showed no evidence of disease. I finished my coffee and moved to the bedroom to prepare for the day. My closet held the gown I'd selected for tonight's gala, a deep emerald silk that complemented my now silver hair. I'd stopped coloring it after treatment, embracing the premature gray that cancer had accelerated. Combined with my lean frame and the quiet confidence I'd earned through survival, the silver created a distinctive look that had become something of a signature in healthcare philanthropy circles. The foundation's office buzzed with pre-gala energy when I arrived. Staff members finalized presentations, confirmed last-minute details with vendors, and prepared materials for the major announcement we'd be making tonight, the launch of a groundbreaking research initiative studying the measurable impact of nature-based interventions on cancer treatment outcomes. Marcus greeted me with a quick hug, his excitement palpable. The research team from Johns Hopkins just confirmed they're attending, and the director of the National Cancer Institute sent word she's trying to rearrange her schedule to make it. That's significant, I nodded, reviewing the latest RSVP list. Any word from Memorial Sloan Kettering? Their entire integrative medicine leadership team is confirmed. They're particularly interested in our pediatric programs. I smiled, remembering how far we'd come from our first small garden at Seattle Children's Hospital. That initial project had now evolved into comprehensive healing environments at over 30 healthcare facilities nationwide, with documented improvements in patient outcomes, reduced medication needs, and enhanced quality of life metrics. Rebecca approached with a tablet displaying the evening's presentation. Final review before we send this to the AV team? I scrolled through the slides, noting the powerful before and after images of hospital spaces transformed into healing gardens, the testimonials from patients and medical professionals, the impressive research data supporting our approach. "It looks perfect," I confirmed, handing back the tablet. "Has Diane finalized the seating chart?" Rebecca's expression shifted slightly. "Yes, about that. We received some unexpected RSVPs yesterday. Diane wanted to discuss it with you directly." Before I could ask for clarification, Diane appeared from the conference room, a concerned look on her face. "Can we talk privately for a minute?" In her office, she closed the door and turned to me with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Your parents and Jessica RSVP'd to the gala. They're claiming they received formal invitations." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. "That's impossible. They weren't on the invitation list." "I know," Diane confirmed. "I checked the database myself. But they called the foundation office yesterday, insisting they'd received electronic invitations and had already made travel arrangements from Portland." A familiar tension crept into my shoulders, the body's memory of decades of family manipulation. Could someone on staff have added them without authorization? Unlikely. Invitation access is limited to senior leadership. My guess is they heard about the event through your foundation's growing public profile and simply invited themselves. I sighed, moving to the window that overlooked our demonstration garden. The irony wasn't lost on me. After 5 years of minimal contact, maintained through carefully constructed boundaries, my family was attempting to insert themselves into what would be the most significant night in the foundation's history. "What do you want to do?" Diane asked quietly. "We can tell them there was a mistake, that we're at capacity." I watched a group of nursing students in the garden below, learning techniques for guiding patients through therapeutic horticulture activities. The foundation's work had expanded far beyond my personal story of survival and betrayal. It now belonged to thousands of patients, hundreds of healthcare professionals, dozens of medical institutions. "No," I decided finally. "Let them come." Diane's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Are you sure? After everything that happened?" I turned back to her, feeling surprisingly calm. "I'm sure. This night isn't about my family or our complicated history. It's about the work we've done and the lives we've changed. Their presence can't diminish that." "And the seating?" she pressed. "They'll expect to be at your table." "Put them at table 14 with the general admission donors," I said firmly. "No special treatment, no acknowledgement in the program, no introductions to major funders. They can attend as regular guests, nothing more." Diane nodded, making notes. "Consider it done. And if they make a scene?" "They won't," I said with certainty. "My parents care too much about appearances for that. They'll play the part of proud family members, even from table 14. The rest of the day passed in a flurry of final preparations. By the time I returned home to dress for the evening, I had almost forgotten about my family's unexpected RSVP. Almost, but not quite. As I slipped into my emerald gown and fastened the simple pendant Eleanor Wright had given me on the 3rd anniversary of her husband's memorial garden, a silver leaf symbolizing renewal, I allowed myself to acknowledge the complex emotions. Their impending presence stirred. 5 years of limited contact had been healing. We exchanged occasional text messages, primarily around major holidays or health updates. I sent appropriate gifts for Jessica's daughter Olivia's birthday and Christmas, maintaining the minimal connection that felt like the right balance between complete estrangement and harmful enmeshment. They had never apologized for taking my treatment fund or for their absence during my cancer battle, and I had stopped expecting them to. I had built a life that didn't revolve around their approval or understanding. Tonight would be a test of how completely I had embraced that independence. The Olympic Sculpture Park glowed with elegant lighting as my car pulled up at precisely 6:09 p.m. The venue, an outdoor museum overlooking Puget Sound, had been transformed for the evening with subtle greenery, living walls, and small garden. Vignettes demonstrating our hospital installation concepts. The effect was both sophisticated and true to our mission, bringing nature into unexpected spaces. Eleanor Wright waited near the entrance, elegant as always at 83, leaning slightly, on a carved wooden cane. She had become a surrogate mother figure over the years, her initial donation growing into a deep friendship built on shared values and mutual respect. "Don't you look magnificent?" she smiled, embracing me warmly. "Harold would be so proud of what you've built." "What we've built," I corrected gently. "Your support made everything possible." She waved away the acknowledgement. "I provided resources. You provided the vision and the determination. Particularly impressive considering what you were fighting personally." As we moved inside, I was immediately swept into conversations with donors, healthcare partners, and foundation supporters. Every few steps brought another congratulatory handshake, another testimonial about how our work had transformed a patient's experience or a hospital's approach to care. Dr. Wilson arrived, with several colleagues from Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, embracing me with genuine warmth. "My star patient, and now my star collaborator," she beamed. "Have you seen the clinical data from the Swedish Medical Center garden? Reduced anxiety medication usage by 32% among cancer patients who spent time there regularly." I hadn't seen her in nearly 6 months, my checkups now spaced further apart with each passing year of remission. "That's significant data. Are you presenting it at the oncology conference next month?" "Absolutely. With prominent acknowledgement of the Evergreen Healing Initiative, of course." Jamie Crawford appeared with his wife, both dressed impeccably. His initial grant for my treatment had evolved into an ongoing partnership with his tech company, developing virtual reality experiences for patients too ill to physically access our gardens. "The pediatric VR garden program has been adopted by 17 children's hospitals," he reported excitedly. "Kids are responding incredibly well to the interactive elements. One child's neurologist reported breakthrough cognitive engagement during the butterfly interaction sequence." As we discussed potential expansions of the virtual program, I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned to find Marcus looking uncharacteristically concerned. "Your family just arrived," he murmured discreetly. "They're asking to be seated at the main table with you and the major donors." I took a steady breath, centering myself. "Please escort them to table 14 as planned, politely but firmly." As Marcus moved away, I caught sight of them across the room, my mother in an obviously new designer dress, my father in a tuxedo, Jessica in something sparkly and attention-seeking. They projected an air of ownership and entitlement that was jarringly familiar, moving through the space as if they expected deference from everyone they encountered. Eleanor followed my gaze, her expression sharpening. "Those are your parents?" "And my sister," I confirmed quietly. "The wedding people," she stated rather than asked, her tone making clear her assessment of their character. "Yes, the wedding people." Her hand found mine, a quick, supportive squeeze. "Shall I run interference? I can be quite formidable when necessary." I smiled at the offer. "Thank you, but no. I've prepared for this moment. Actually, I've been preparing for 5 years." Across the room, I watched as Marcus directed my family to their assigned table. My mother's expression tightened with displeasure, my father's posture stiffened with indignation, and Jessica's mouth formed what appeared to be a protest. But with hundreds of Seattle's medical and philanthropic elite surrounding them, they had no choice but to comply, taking their seats with forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Diane appeared at my elbow. "Crisis averted for now. We're ready to begin the program whenever you are." I nodded, taking a final moment to survey the room filled with colleagues, supporters, medical professionals, and patients whose lives had been touched by our work. Whatever happened with my family tonight, this gathering represented the truth of what we'd built. a community dedicated to healing in all its dimensions. The program began with a short video documenting the Foundation's journey, from our first garden installation to our current nationwide impact. As images of patients finding peace and healing in our gardens filled the screen, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had begun as a personal passion project had grown into something that transcended my individual story. When I took the stage afterward, the room fell silent. Hundreds of faces turned expectantly toward me. 5 years ago, I began. I received 2 life-altering pieces of news within 24 hours. The first was a diagnosis of stage 3 ovarian cancer. The second was that the fund intended for my specialized treatment had been reallocated to another purpose. I paused, aware of my family shifting uncomfortably at their distant table. That moment of crisis became a fork in the road. One path led toward bitterness and despair. The other led toward purpose and meaning. Standing here tonight, surrounded by the remarkable community we've built together, I'm profoundly grateful that circumstances pushed me toward the latter. I continued, highlighting the Foundation's accomplishments, acknowledging key partners and supporters, and outlining our vision for the National Healing Landscapes Initiative. As I spoke, I found myself making eye contact with various people throughout the room. Dr. Wilson, who had guided my medical journey, Eleanor Wright, who had funded my treatment when my family wouldn't, Jamie Crawford, whose initial grant had grown into a transformative partnership, Diane and the Foundation team who had become my chosen family. Conspicuously, I did not look toward Table 14. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce the establishment of the Survivors Garden Initiative, I concluded, a new program that will create specialized healing gardens specifically designed for cancer survivors navigating the complex journey of post-treatment life. These spaces will acknowledge that healing continues long after medical treatment ends, providing environments where survivors can process their experiences, reconnect with their bodies, and rediscover joy. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause, particularly from the medical professionals who understood the often overlooked challenges of cancer survivorship. As I left the stage, the evening transitioned to dinner and continued networking, the energy in the room vibrant with possibility and shared purpose. I was in conversation with the chief medical officer of a major healthcare system when I felt a presence at my shoulder. Turning, I found my mother standing there, her expression a practiced blend of pride and affection that didn't quite mask the calculation in her eyes. "Darling, what a wonderful presentation," she gushed, air-kissing, near my cheek. "Your father and I are simply bursting with pride. I've been telling everyone at our table that you inherited your public speaking abilities from me." "Thank you for coming," I replied neutrally, maintaining professional composure. "I hope you're enjoying the evening." "Oh, absolutely, though. We were rather surprised by the seating arrangements. There seems to have been some mistake. Surely the family of the founder should be seated at the main table." Her voice carried just enough volume to be heard by those nearby, a subtle attempt to create social pressure. "There's no mistake," I said evenly. "The main table is reserved for major donors and program partners." My mother's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, your father and I would like to become donors. We've been discussing it and we're prepared to make a significant contribution. Perhaps we could name a garden after Jessica's daughter. Little Olivia would love that." Before I could respond, Eleanor Wright appeared beside me, her presence somehow commanding despite her diminutive stature. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Eleanor Wright, founding donor of the Harold Wright Memorial Garden at Swedish Medical Center. The one that funded your daughter's cancer treatment when your family chose a wedding instead." My mother's face flushed, her composure momentarily fracturing. That's not exactly. We had certain family obligations." "Yes, obligations," Eleanor interrupted smoothly. "I understand those well. My obligation to my late husband was to honor his life by supporting causes that reflected his values." Your daughter has built something extraordinary from what must have been unimaginable personal pain. That requires remarkable character." The strategic pause that followed made clear her assessment of where that character had not come from. "If you'll excuse us," Eleanor continued, "Olivia and I are expected at the research partnerships table. So many brilliant minds eager to expand this work nationally." As she guided me away, I caught a glimpse of my mother's stricken expression, not from shame or remorse, but from the public acknowledgement of what she had tried so hard to erase from the family narrative. "Thank you," I murmured to Eleanor once we were out of earshot. "Though that may have made things more complicated." "Sometimes complications are necessary for growth," she replied with a knowing smile. "In gardens and in families." The remainder of the evening passed in a whirlwind of meaningful conversations, significant connections, and genuine celebration. Through it all, I maintained awareness of my family's presence, but refused to allow it to dominate my attention. This night belonged to the foundation and its mission, not to unresolved family dynamics. As the event wound down, Diane approached with news that my family had departed early, citing a long drive back to Portland. "Your father left his business card with a note saying they'd like to discuss significant family involvement in the Foundation's future at your convenience." I accepted the card, tucking it into my evening bag without comment. Whatever conversation might eventually occur with my family, it would happen on my terms, not theirs. After the last guests had departed, and only the core Foundation team remained, we gathered for our tradition of private celebration. Champagne was poured, shoes were kicked off, and toasts were offered to specific achievements of the past year. "To our fearless leader," Diane proposed, raising her glass in my direction, "who showed us that the deepest wounds can become sources of the most profound healing." As glasses clinked and tired smiles were exchanged, I felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with my family's brief appearance and everything to do with the community surrounding me now. These people, who had supported my vision, enhanced it with their own expertise, stood by me through illness and recovery, were my true family, bound by shared purpose rather than mere DNA. Later that night, alone in my apartment overlooking the Seattle skyline, I opened the French doors to my balcony garden. The space had evolved over the years from a few container plants to a sophisticated small-scale version of our therapeutic gardens with carefully selected elements designed to engage all senses. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Mom is super upset about tonight," says some old lady embarrassed her in front of important people. "Why do you always have to make everything so difficult? We were just trying to support you." I set the phone aside without responding and turned instead to the moonlit plants surrounding me, running my fingers along the silvery leaves of lamb's ear, inhaling the gentle fragrance of night-blooming jasmine, listening to the subtle rustling of ornamental grasses in the October breeze. I recognized a truth that had been emerging slowly. Throughout my recovery, I no longer needed my family to recognize the value of my life or work. Their validation, or lack thereof, had become irrelevant to my sense of self-worth. My parents had made their choice 5 years ago, prioritizing Jessica's wedding over my cancer treatment. I had made my choice too, to build something meaningful from that betrayal, to transform personal pain into collective healing, to create family from shared values rather than shared history. The Foundation's work would continue expanding, transforming healthcare environments and improving patient outcomes nationwide. My personal healing journey would continue as well, with or without my family's understanding or participation. In the end, perhaps that was the most powerful revenge, not bitterness or retaliation, but thriving so completely that those who had undervalued you became irrelevant to your story. The next morning, I woke to an email from Dr. Wilson containing preliminary results from the latest research at Swedish Medical Center. Patients with regular access to the therapeutic garden were showing significantly improved immune function compared to the control group, with measurable differences in inflammation markers and stress hormones. This could change standard protocols. For cancer care, she wrote, your vision is literally transforming medicine from the ground up. As I prepared for a day of post-gala follow-up meetings, another text arrived from my mother. Your father and I have been talking about establishing a family foundation that could partner with your garden project. Jessica has connections with several Portland Society families who might contribute. Let's discuss over lunch next week. The dismissive characterization of the nationally recognized Evergreen Healing Initiative as my garden project said everything. About how little they had evolved, how completely they had missed the significance of what the foundation had accomplished. I typed a simple response. Thank you for the offer. The Evergreen Healing Initiative has established partnerships with research institutions and healthcare systems that align with our evidence-based approach. I wish you well if you decide to pursue your own foundation. Then I silenced notifications. From their numbers, slipped my phone into my bag, and headed to the office where the real work of healing, both for patients and for myself, continued beyond the gala's glow. 5 years after my cancer diagnosis, the gardens we had planted were flourishing across the country, creating spaces where thousands of patients found strength during their most vulnerable moments. My body had healed, my work had transcended my personal story, and my heart had found peace in a truth I once couldn't have imagined. Sometimes the family you choose creates more powerful roots than the family you're born into. And sometimes, the greatest gift others can give you is showing exactly who they are when it matters most, even when that revelation comes through betrayal. Because in that painful clarity, you find the courage to become who you were always meant to be. Up. Next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.